The hardest hits you ever took never touched your skin. They buried themselves in your mind and kept swinging long after the crowd went home. Stay with me for 60 seconds and you'll feel the bruise you've been denying your entire life. You don't see the bruises, but you feel the pain. That's the cruel thing about words. They don't leave marks on your skin. They leave scars on your soul. Scars that last for years, sometimes for a lifetime. You know what it's like to live with voices that hit harder than fists. Voices that tell you, you're not enough, you'll never be good enough, nobody will ever really love you. Those words don't disappear when the argument ends. They stay. They echo in your head in the quiet moments, in the middle of the night, even when everything around you looks fine. And the worst part, nobody sees it. To the world, you look okay, maybe even successful, but inside, those words have become a prison. They shape the way you see yourself, the way you live, the way you love, and you start believing them. You start repeating them, until one day, the person hurting you the most is you. This isn't about physical strength. It's not about fists or fights. It's about the silent violence, the kind that breaks you slowly, every single day, without anyone noticing. You've tried ignoring it. You've told yourself to stay positive. Maybe you've even read the self-help books that promise to fix everything. But here's the truth. None of that works if the words have already become part of your identity. By the end of this video, you'll understand why the wounds words leave take longer to heal than any bruise. And more importantly, you'll see what it really takes to stop those invisible punches from controlling your life. You've heard the same prescriptions so many times they sound like background music in a cheap elevator. Just ignore it. Be stronger. Think positive. On the surface, each phrase feels harmless, even encouraging, like a pat on the back or a motivational poster in some fluorescent-lit office where nobody actually believes the slogan. But the moment life punches you in the gut, those pastel words turn sour. They don't soften the blow, they deepen it, because they whisper that your pain is really your fault for choosing the wrong mindset. The bruise on your spirit throbs louder, and the chorus of empty cliches starts to feel like mockery. There's a cruel twist hidden in every quick-fix mantra. When someone tells you to just let it go, they're unknowingly saying, there's something wrong with you for still hurting. They don't see that words operate like wet cement. The instant a cutting sentence lands, you're useless, you'll never amount to anything, or the deceptively casual, what's wrong with you? It seeps into the cracks of your identity. Given time, it hardens. Once set, you can't scrape it off by papering over it with positive vibes. Your nervous system already logged the insult, your memory filed it under evidence against yourself. That's why every forced affirmation can feel like putting a bright sticker on a cracked windshield. You may cover the fracture, but the structural damage remains. The advice to be stronger sounds noble until you notice what it really demands: a denial of vulnerability. Strength, in that bumper sticker sense, means refusing to flinch no matter how deep the cut. Yet refusing to flinch only traps the pain inside, where it ferments into shame. Shame rewires your sense of safety. It convinces you that even asking for help is proof you're weak. So you tighten the armor, smile wider, post another filtered photo, and secretly feel more alone than ever. Perversely, the armor itself becomes a new cage, because now you're terrified someone might glimpse the raw skin underneath and confirm every vicious word you've swallowed. Think positive, they tell you, as if the mind were a light switch you simply forgot to flip. But optimism works like sunlight. It can nurture growth, yet it also casts sharper shadows. When you bask in forced positivity, the shadow grows darker by contrast. You start policing your own thoughts, exiling negative feelings, pretending the shadow doesn't exist. That repression doesn't heal, it metastasizes. Night after night, the negative feelings you tried to banish regroup like guerrilla fighters, ambushing you with insomnia, panic, unexplained fatigue. you're not failing to be positive. Positivity is failing to respect the complexity of your inner world. Here's what most therapists, coaches, and influencers won't tell you. The problem isn't merely the words other people toss at you. The problem is how swiftly those words become your own voice. External criticism mutates into self-talk, and self-talk is 24/7 radio with no off button. That interior narrator comments on your posture when you enter a room, on the stumble in your speech, on the inbox you haven't answered. Eventually, you stop noticing that the voice isn't native. It was imported, piece by piece, from parents, teachers, ex-lovers, bosses, internet strangers. You mistake it for intuition, even for conscience. You follow its orders, not realizing it's repeating a script written by someone who never knew your full story. Most self-help approaches focus on changing content, swapping "I'm worthless" for "I'm amazing." But content isn't king, tone is. A cheerleader who yells, "You're amazing," with a sneer will still make you flinch, because the nervous system reads threat before it decodes words. In the same way, when you force yourself to recite affirmations, that harsh, skeptical tone leaks through, and your body hears only one message: lie detected. Instead of relief, you feel a deeper sting of failure. You can't even get positivity right. There's another, quieter illusion, the belief that insight alone will set you free. Maybe you've traced the origin of your inner critic back to 5th grade when a teacher mocked your handwriting. Maybe you can diagram the trauma on a whiteboard. Yet knowledge without embodiment is a map without a road. It shows where treasure might be, but you still have to trudge through mud to reach it. Reading about boundaries won't stop your heart from racing when you finally say no. Understanding attachment theory won't automatically soothe the trembling in your chest when someone you love goes silent. Healing isn't an update you download, it's a practice you inhabit, breath by breath. Here's the bitter medicine. Ignoring, toughing up, and slapping a smile on top are not shortcuts. They're detours back to the beginning of your pain. Each time you circle that loop, the trench gets deeper. Your brain wires more tightly around the idea that you are the problem, that your hurt is a defect to be hidden. That wiring forms a closed circuit, and the current is self-hatred. Break the circuit, and the current stops. But first you have to see it for what it is, an echo chamber, not the voice of truth. And here's the dagger most people never see coming. Sometimes the most brutal abuser in your life is the one living behind your own eyes. You learned the script from others, yes, but now you repeat it with perfectionist precision. You lash yourself for every mistake before the world even notices. You cancel plans you secretly need because the voice calls you lazy. You sabotage love because the voice hisses you're unworthy. The cycle is self-perpetuating. The more pain you feel, the more evidence the inner abuser has that you are broken, and the more broken you feel, the louder the abuse becomes. So if you followed all the mainstream advice and still wake up feeling hollow, you're not failing. The advice was never built to reach the depth where those words live. It treats symptoms, not source code. It ignores the truth that language, once internalized, is no longer a string of syllables. It's neurobiology, muscle memory, an automatic reflex intertwined with your sense of self. But stay with me, because there's a way through. Not over, not around, through. And to travel that path, you'll need to dismantle the loudspeaker inside, one sentence at a time. That begins with recognizing whose voice you're hearing, questioning whether you want to keep carrying it, and daring to speak a new language in the silence that follows. Yet before we go there, understand this. The work is uncomfortable. It asks you to sit with raw nerves instead of numbing them. It asks you to unpack memories you swore you'd never revisit. It asks you to confront the possibility that the life you've built is scaffolded around lies someone else planted. Hard truths, yes, but also liberating, because once you see the blueprint, you can redesign the entire structure, And that leads us to something even more unsettling, something most self-help gurus gloss over. Sometimes you cling to the very voices that wound you because they're familiar. They give you a sense of identity, twisted though it is. Letting them go can feel like floating in space without a tether. Facing that fear is the price of freedom. I won't insult you by saying the process is easy. I will promise that it's possible. But first, you need to feel the full weight of the illusion, so you can choose, consciously, deliberately, to shatter it. Because once a lie is exposed, it loses half its power. The other half, that's yours to reclaim. But there's something even darker we have to address, something far more frightening than the lies others told you. Sometimes the cruelest insults now come from you. How do you confront an enemy that speaks with your own tongue? We'll peel back that layer next, and I'll show you why the inner battlefield is both the most dangerous and the most fertile ground for real transformation. If you've caught yourself thinking, "Those are my words turning against me," hit subscribe right now. Every new subscriber nudges the algorithm to put this message in front of someone else who's finally ready to stare down their own shadow instead of running from it. Think of it as joining a quiet rebellion against the lies we keep repeating to ourselves and giving others permission to start the same fight inside their heads. So, if this feels personal, don't scroll past. Click subscribe and help us light up the dark corners, one honest voice at a time. The words always start outside you. They come from a parent's sigh, a teacher's careless joke, a friend's cruel nickname. At first, they hang in the air like smoke you can wave away, but the mind is a porous thing. It breathes stories the way lungs breathe oxygen, and every story leaves residue. Keep inhaling the same judgment. You're too sensitive, too loud, too weak, too much, and sooner or later it settles into the wallpaper of your unconscious. You stop noticing the pattern even as you live inside it. That's how an external sentence turns into an internal sentence, an invisible echo chamber Carl Jung called the complex. A complex is a charged knot of memory, emotion, and belief that operates below the threshold of ordinary thought. You don't think a complex, it thinks you. When the trigger word fires, maybe someone laughs at your idea in a meeting, the complex grabs the steering wheel before you realize what's happening. Suddenly, your heart is racing, your hands are cold, and an ancient verdict rings out inside your skull. I'm useless. It feels like intuition. In reality, it's an algorithm coded by someone else years ago. That inner verdict is what most of us call the inner critic, though a better name might be the voice of the past. It speaks in the cadence of parents who measured love and achievements, coaches who equated mistakes with shame, media that sold perfection as survival. Each repetition fortified the neural path until judgment became a reflex. If a stranger walked up and muttered, "You're pathetic," you'd call it abuse. But when the inner critic snarls the same words, you accept them as facts, proof you're finally seeing yourself realistically. Jung's great insight was that every personality casts a shadow. The parts of ourselves we were told were unacceptable. Maybe you learned that anger makes you unladylike, that sadness makes you dramatic, that desire makes you selfish. Those energies didn't disappear. They moved underground, into the shadow's basement. Down there they fuse with the words that banished them. The result is a lethal duet, the feeling you're not allowed to express, twinned with the sentence that forbids it. Over time, the duet scores your entire emotional life. Why does a spoken insult cut deeper than a slap? Because physical pain lives in the present moment. Once the bruise fades, the body resets. But linguistic pain is time traveling. Words bind a past humiliation to a future expectation. You failed then, you'll fail again. Each recollection reactivates the original stress chemistry. Cortisol, adrenaline, a spike in heart rate, even if decades have passed. Trauma researchers call this the body keeping the score. Your nervous system relives the slap of language as though it's happening now. Here's the brutal paradox. The abuser may be long gone, yet you keep the abuse alive by quoting them verbatim. You repeat the script in traffic, in the shower, in the split second before sleep. Some nights, the voice wakes you just to remind you who it thinks you are. Slowly, you become both prisoner and prison guard. No external enemy could surveil you so relentlessly. And here's the twist. Most self-help books sidestep. Sometimes you grow attached to that inner cage. Familiar pain feels safer than unfamiliar freedom. If you stopped calling yourself not enough, who might you have to become? If you released the mantra, I'm unlovable, would you dare to risk real intimacy and real rejection? The psyche clings to its wounds because they double as identity tags. Tear off the tag, and the question arises, who am I without this story? That question is exhilarating. It's also terrifying. Stay with that tension, because it's the doorway to real change. And here's the most unsettling truth of all. Sometimes you love your own prison more than the key that could unlock it. Why? You'll understand in a minute. It begins with a pause. Not a heroic leap, not a blazing affirmation, just a silent, deliberate pause in the middle of your ordinary chaos. Because if you can carve out 3 seconds of awareness before the inner critic lunges, you've cracked the cell door. The work ahead won't be pretty, and it won't be quick, but it will be yours. These 4 practices aren't miracle hacks, they're chisels, and a chisel only frees the statue if you keep striking, day after day, sometimes in the dark, sometimes through tears. Tool 1. Track the voice. Objective. Catch the critic in real time. When to use. Any moment you notice a tightening in the gut, a flash of shame, a retreat into numb scrolling, spot the spike. The critic enters first as sensation, not language. A drop in the stomach, heat behind the eyes, jaw locking. As soon as you feel the spike, whisper, out loud if possible. A voice is speaking. Naming the moment cracks the trance. Press, record. Pretend your mind is a phone and hit the red button. Let the critic spew its monologue verbatim. Pathetic. Slow. Nobody wants you here. Do not argue or censor. Your only job is to transcribe the raw snarl in a notes app or on paper. Locate the accent. Once it finishes, ask yourself, whose cadence is that? Mother's clipped sigh, a coach's bark, a kid on the bus? You're not blaming, you're mapping origins. Most critics aren't original, they're DJs sampling old tracks. When you spot the accent, label it. Ah, that's 6th grade gym class. This simple ID pulls the teeth out of the voice because it's no longer the truth, it's a memory. Body reset. Exhale twice as long as you inhale. Let the nervous system cool. Only when the body settles can the mind rewire. Track, label, breathe, repeat. Tiny, brutal, effective. Tool 2. Reclaim the script. Not mine, mine. Objective. Separate implanted narratives from your authentic voice. Frequency. 10 minutes, once a day for 2 weeks. Create 2 columns. Left side, not mine. Right side, mine. Dump the imports. Under not mine, jot every imported verdict you can remember. Real men don't cry. Smart girls aren't loud. Success means being busy. Keep writing until the page feels heavy. Cross-examine. For each line, ask, does this belief nourish me or shrink me? No middle ground. If it shrinks you, strike a thick line through it. That stroke is a micro-exorcism. Author the right column. Under mine, write a single counterstatement drawn from lived experience, not wishful thinking. Example, not mine. Feelings make me weak. Mine. Feeling my fear let me leave a toxic job. This isn't affirmation wallpaper. It's a factual ledger of moments where your own wisdom proved more trustworthy than the implant. Over time, that ledger becomes a new internal law. Tool 3. Permission to rage. Objective. Metabolize suppressed anger so it stops mutating into shame or self-harm. Safety first. Never aim rage at a person or animal. Choose a private space, a heavy pillow, a steering wheel in a parked car, any target that cannot bleed. Name the trespass. Whisper, "I am angry because," and finish the sentence in one breath. Specificity pulls anger out of abstraction into the body. Move like thunder, slam a fist into the pillow, stomp barefoot, roar into a folded towel. The goal is short, explosive discharge, 30 to 60 seconds max. This signals the amygdala that fight energy has been honored, not repressed. Cool down ritual. Place a palm on your sternum, inhale slowly, and say, "I survived my own fire." Expect trembling or tears. That's the nervous system melting armor. Integration note. Jot 2 sentences. What did the anger try to protect? What boundary needs reinforcement? Here, anger transforms from arsonist to bodyguard. Tool 4. Dialogue with the shadow. Objective. Turn the banished parts of you into allies rather than saboteurs. Best done. Pen and paper, 30 minutes, uninterrupted. Summon the scene. Close your eyes and picture a room. Your shadow, anger, neediness, lust, grief, sits across from you. Describe them in one paragraph. Posture, age, expression. The more vivid, the less slippery the conversation. Let the shadow speak. Write down everything it wants to say. No edits, no defense. Shadows often begin with accusations. You use me and dump me. Let them rant. Respond as the adult self. Now switch pens or ink color. Answer with grounded empathy, not appeasement. "You're right. I feared you'd destroy my relationships. What do you actually need from me?" Negotiate a pact. Draft one action step both sides can accept. Scheduling a weekly rage release, allowing tears in front of a friend, pitching a risky idea at work. Sign it. Shadow and self, co-authors. Exit ritual. Thank the shadow aloud and close the notebook. Small theatrical gestures teach the brain this is real, not fantasy. Reality check. None of these tools delete pain in 24 hours. They will, slowly, stubbornly, return agency to where language first stole it. Every tracked voice, every crossed-out lie, every safe scream is a vote for sovereignty. The process feels anticlimactic at times, even boring. That's recovery. Rewiring is repetitive by design. Keep going. One day you'll realize an insult that used to slice now lands like rain on stone, noticed, but no longer penetrating. Closing words can kill. Words can resurrect. Tonight they did both in the space of this conversation. The next move belongs to you, and it starts with the simplest, hardest act, an honest sentence directed inward. If you recognized your own story in these lines, drop a comment that says, "I'm done running from pain." Let's see how many of us are ready for the truth. Or choose another pledge. My darkness is my power. I'm taking off the masks. I embrace my shadow. Each statement is a small jailbreak, a flare that signals to the community, I'm here and I'm done hiding. So, step to the edge, speak your line, and remember, the journey is brutal, but it's yours. And that makes it sacred. This is only the beginning. You'll be stunned to discover how much of your life is still steered by other people's words, but we'll dive into that in the next videos.